Imagine waking up one day to the news that your home, your history, your very identity is being handed over to an aggressor. That's the stark reality facing many Ukrainians, as the possibility of ceding the Donbas region to Russia looms large. But what would such a decision really mean for Ukraine, beyond just redrawing lines on a map? Just a few days before meeting Vladimir Putin in Alaska, then-President Donald Trump casually mentioned land swaps as a potential path to peace. For Ukrainians, this phrase landed like a bombshell. What land was being swapped? Was Ukraine supposed to receive a piece of Russia in return for territory seized by force? The idea was both confusing and deeply unsettling. As President Volodymyr Zelensky prepares for a crucial meeting with President Trump in Washington, the specter of this land swap, or rather, a land giveaway, hangs heavy. Reports suggest that Trump may pressure Zelensky to surrender the entirety of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, collectively known as Donbas, to Russia, in exchange for a frozen front line. Luhansk is already largely under Russian control. But here's where it gets controversial. Ukraine still holds roughly 30% of Donetsk, including strategically vital cities and fortifications, defended at the cost of countless Ukrainian lives. Surrendering these regions, rich in minerals and industry, would be, in the words of Ukrainian historian Yaroslav Heretsak, a tragedy. This is Ukrainian territory, Heretsak emphasizes, and the people of these regions, particularly the miners, played a huge role in strengthening the Ukrainian identity. He further points out that the Donbas has produced famous politicians, poets, and dissidents. And this is the part most people miss. Handing over the Donbas means condemning countless refugees to permanent exile, unable to ever return home. Since 2014, when Russian aggression first ignited, at least 1.5 million Ukrainians have fled the Donbas. An estimated 3 million more live under Russian occupation. A further 300,000 remain in the parts of the Donbas still under Ukrainian control. Life near the front lines is a constant struggle for survival. Andriy Bolillo, a military chaplain in the heavily bombarded city of Sloviansk, recounted how shells landed near his home. "It is a very difficult situation here," he lamented. "There is a feeling of resignation and abandonment. Someone has to protect us." But who? Borillo, following the news from Alaska, expressed his despair. "I put this on Trump, not Zelensky, but they are taking everything from me, and it is a betrayal." Zelensky has repeatedly stated that Ukraine will not cede the Donbas for peace, and confidence in Russia's willingness to abide by any agreement is understandably low. Why would Russia stop at the Donbas? What's to prevent them from using the annexed territory as a launchpad for future attacks? For these reasons, polls indicate that roughly 75% of Ukrainians oppose formally ceding any land to Russia. But here's where it gets controversial. Is this stance realistic given the immense human cost of the war? Ukraine is undeniably war-weary. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians have been killed or wounded since the full-scale invasion began. The desire for an end to the suffering, particularly in the Donbas, is palpable. Yevhen Takashov, an emergency rescue worker in Kramatorsk, poignantly stated, "You ask about the surrender of the Donetsk region. Well, I measure this war not in kilometers, but in human lives. I'm not ready to give tens of thousands of lives for several thousand square kilometers. Life is more important than territory." This sentiment encapsulates the agonizing dilemma at the heart of the issue. Land versus life. Ukrainian MP Volodymyr Ariev describes Zelensky as being at a crossroads with no good route in front of him. "We don't have enough forces to continue the war for an unlimited time," Ariev acknowledges. But if Zelensky were to concede this land, it would be not only a breakdown of our constitution, it could have the hallmarks of treason. And this is the part most people miss. Even if Zelensky wanted to cede the Donbas, the legal and political hurdles are immense. It's unclear how such an agreement could even be reached. Any formal handover of territory requires parliamentary approval and a national referendum. A de facto surrender of control, without formal recognition of Russian sovereignty, might be more likely. But even that scenario raises complex legal questions. Ukrainian MP Inna Sobson points out the lack of a clear procedure. There's no real understanding as to what the procedure should be. There is no legal procedure set up because, the Constitution writers didn't think about this. The Constitution simply doesn't address the possibility of ceding territory under duress. Zelensky's upcoming meeting with Trump in Washington may shed some light on the situation. Amid the unease stemming from the Alaska summit, one potential positive development emerged. Trump appeared to reverse his stance on security guarantees, suggesting a willingness to join Europe in offering Ukraine military protection against future Russian attacks. For Ukrainians, security guarantees are paramount in any potential agreement. Anton Grushetsky, director of Kyiv's International Institute for Sociology, emphasizes that people in Ukraine will accept various forms of security guarantees, but they require them. Yevhen Tukov, the emergency worker in Kramatorsk, echoes this sentiment. Only then, more or less, I am in favor of giving Donbas to Russia. If the British Royal Navy is stationed in the port of Odessa, then I agree. But here's where it gets controversial. Are such guarantees realistic, and would they truly deter future Russian aggression? As various paths to peace are considered, it's crucial not to lose sight of the human cost. The people of the Donbas have already endured a decade of war and stand to lose even more in exchange for a fragile peace. Vitaly Dribnitsia, a Ukrainian historian, reminds us that we are not just talking about culture, about politics, about demographics. We are talking about people. Donetsk, while perhaps lacking the cultural renown of cities like Odessa, is undeniably Ukrainian. And any corner of Ukraine, regardless of whether it has some great cultural significance or not, is Ukraine, Dribnitsia asserts. Ultimately, the question of whether to cede the Donbas is not just a political or strategic calculation. It's a deeply moral one, with profound implications for the future of Ukraine and its people. What price is too high for peace? And what responsibilities do the international community have to protect Ukraine's sovereignty and its citizens? What do you think? Is ceding territory ever a justifiable path to peace, or is it always a betrayal of national identity and the people who call that land home? Share your thoughts in the comments below.